Now, ever since November of 2024, we have seen this slow turn of the tide from many major Hollywood studios out there. It's going to take a very long time, as far as I see things, for anything to go back to the way things used to be years and years ago, before everything was driven by DEI and overall their ideology and their agendas that were being shoehorned into movies and television. But focusing on Will Smith in particular, there's a lot of things going on with him right now. A lot of backlash scenarios happening between himself and Sony, as well as how this also involves Jada Pinkett Smith. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Will Smith is that we know that he lost millions upon millions of fans ever since 2022 at the Oscars, when he slapped Chris Rock live on television, on stage by the way. That really just did not work well for him at all. In fact, it really lost him a lot of roles. He was banned from the Oscars for 10, 11 years or so. I think that's the margin. But what's interesting here has a lot more to do with Will Smith's recent behavior after Sony actually really backfired and really went against him in the worst way possible that he could really imagine. Now, this is where things begin to really go out of control for Will Smith and Men in Black 5, because they are trying to get this project on track, as well as a Men in Black trilogy that is now in shambles. We'll talk about that mainly in the subject of this video. Now, what's interesting about this is that, given that many actors and actresses still have, of course, been not getting the memo and understanding that focusing on politics in their careers was the wrong decision, one major development going on now, alright, involves more to do with Will Smith and a recent moment of outrage that he had with his career with a major Hollywood studio like Sony. It turns out that after multiple negotiations of Will Smith's finances with Sony for Men in Black 5, where he was demanding to be paid roughly $110 million for one movie, where Sony only took a stand and said they are only willing to go to $70 million now for Men in Black 5, no ifs, ands, or buts. This argument shockingly led to a major decision by Sony's CEO and its many studio executives, including the board, to cancel their plans for an entire new Men in Black trilogy. Now, this was supposed to form as a Men in Black 5, 6, and 7, all taking place after the events of the 2012 third movie, and not addressing the fourth one, which by the way was called Men in Black International. Now, this decision coming from the Sony CEO to only make one film, Men in Black 5, and one film only, creating chaos between Will Smith and the executives, is where it's at right now, where it got to a point where the drama was so loud it was spreading throughout all of Sony. Now, Will Smith is already reportedly blaming Sony that they are biased for looking back at what he did against Chris Rock at the 2022 Oscars, and also Will blamed the Sony execs for judging him based on his personal life and marriage with Jada Pinkett Smith after she tried to get involved in Men in Black 5, and is already labeling Sony for wrongfully declining a new Men in Black trilogy because his wife Jada got involved in some heated arguments with the CEO. And though that was partially true as to why they canceled the trilogy, it also had a lot more to do with the fact that Will was demanding each film, get this, to pay him at least minimum $100 million for Men in Black 6 and 7, apart from the fifth film where he wanted $110. Now, Sony already made it clear recently to Will in one of their meetings that there will no longer be a 6th and 7th movie, and that no further negotiations will take place at all. Now guys, let me just say one thing. It's one thing to have all of these plans for a 5th Men in Black film. It's another thing to go as far to say, hey, let's do a Men in Black trilogy, and that fell apart, all because of Will Smith really making all of these awful negotiations, all of these unrealistic demands. $100 million per movie? I think that's insane. That's $300 million plus for an entire trilogy that Will Smith will be paid for in something that may not be successful, right? Now, look, I think that Sony was getting way too ahead of themselves to begin with. First, you should focus on the performance of a 5th film, and then take it from there. The fact that they wanted to do 3 movies all together in this recent development is ludicrous, it's insanity. But at the end of the day, we know that Jada Pinkett Smith was the one that really created and stirred up the drama right from the get-go over at Sony in regards to Men in Black 5. Not defending her at all one bit, nor am I defending Will Smith, just saying that they both contributed to this disaster, this production disaster. So, it's a take it or leave it situation right now. And for Men in Black 5, and even Tommy Lee Jones, get this, was beginning to criticize Will Smith to take the role in order to make something truly special. Because, you know, Tommy Lee Jones respects the art of acting. This film is now essentially labeled as a reunion film with no more sequels intended after its release. Jada Pinkett Smith also got involved in this drama as well, where she too started blaming Sony that they made this decision based on her demands and requests to become a part of the 5th movie. So she too is also blaming the Sony execs for canceling out this Men in Black trilogy because she got involved in the entire production disaster of really making all of these outlandish demands, piggybacking on Will Smith's success and his connections with Sony to say, hey, put me in this film, or else Will's not going to be a part of it. That's basically what she did, and that's basically what really stirred up the whole drama, and how it changed the perception of Will's image from the point of view of the Sony executives, right? Including its CEO, who, by the way, I think made a great decision by at least canceling out a 6th and 7th movie, and likely this 5th film, it's gonna fall apart. Look, it's 2025 now. By the time this movie drops, it wouldn't be until at least 2027 anyway. That's what they expected it out to be like. Nobody really cares about Men in Black anymore, I feel that's a franchise of the past that's no longer really something in anybody's mind now, especially now that you have, you know, different generations growing older and new generations coming in. I don't think Men in Black 5 would be a profitable contribution or a profitable movie to actually develop, right? So, to top things off, this project is now at a tipping point where the only, of course, scenario right now is that the Sony board of directors are going as far to say that if a deal is not reached within the next 2 weeks, that they are going to drop Will Smith altogether, and instead, get this, we'll be focusing on a complete reboot of the Men in Black franchise to go down a more serious route instead of an action comedy series to differentiate it from the Will Smith movies, essentially. Now, this latest studio drama is only making matters worse for Will Smith, since now other studios are hearing of this and all of this, you know, going on over at Sony, and are reportedly appalled of Will's behavior. Now, this entire squabble, by the way, going on between Will and the Sony executives, it's spreading like wildfire. Studios like Lionsgate, studios like, for example, Universal, Columbia Pictures, I mean, all of these different major Hollywood studios are beginning to hear about this. Some of which that are still willing to work with Will Smith are no longer willing to work with him anymore. That's pretty much where it's at right now. Now, again, I think that Men in Black 5, I don't really see this going any further. I think eventually it's going to be hitting a brick wall, and they're just going to take it off their roster. They're not going to move ahead with this thing, especially after Will Smith is creating so much unnecessary drama behind closed doors. But overall, I would love to hear what everyone has to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.